Hello everyone and welcome to my beginner to intermediate Ruby on Rails course. In this course, I'm going to be going over the key concepts that you need to become an intermediate at Ruby on Rails. You can have a look at the timestamps in the description to check the topics covered in this course. The first thing that we're going to be doing is installing Ruby on Rails on our Linux subsystem, so let's go ahead and do that. Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install Ruby on Rails on Windows with a Linux subsystem for Windows. This is the best way to install Ruby on Rails, so let's get started. The first thing that you're going to want to do is search up turn Windows features on or off. These are just some settings that we have to turn on or turn off for the Linux subsystem for Windows. And so the first one that we're looking for is called virtual machine platform. So here we just have to tick this virtual machine platform. This is going to install some packages. There are two more. The next one is called Windows Hypervisor Platform. Tick that one. And then the last one is called Windows Subsystem for Linux. So tick that one as well, and then you're good to go. As you can see, it's applying changes now. It asks that I restart my computer, so I'm going to go ahead and restart it. Okay, so now that I have restarted my computer, what I'm going to do is go into the Microsoft Store, and then we're going to install the Windows Terminal. If you've already got the Windows Terminal, then you can skip ahead to the next step. But pretty much the Windows Terminal is a really handy terminal, which makes it easier to develop because you can select which CLI you're going to use, which is extremely handy. So I'm going to click install on the Windows Terminal. If Microsoft Store is not working for you, try and get it to work, but if it somehow does not work, then you can probably get it online by searching up the Windows Terminal. This step is not absolutely required, but it's just a handy thing that I like to do in my way of installing Rails. The next thing that we definitely need to do is search up Ubuntu. We're going to install Ubuntu and make sure to get the long-term support version, which is LTS. So currently it's version 22.04.5. It probably doesn't matter which version it's going to be. The steps are probably going to remain the same. So click install, and this is going to take a while because it's quite heavy, 322 megabytes. Once Ubuntu has been installed, we're going to go and open it up to set it up. It's going to say installing. This may take a few minutes, so we're just going to let it run for as long as it takes. Then it asks for a Unix username. This can be anything. Try and make it as short and as simple as possible. I'm just going to say mal. As a shortened for my name, Malaki. Hit enter, and then a password. And again, try to use a short password that you will remember. Don't worry that it's not showing up when you actually type the keys into your keyboard. It is working. Then hit enter. Then it says retype the new password. Hit enter. And then it says installation successful. So now that we have Ubuntu installed on our Windows machine, we technically already have a Windows subsystem for Linux. Now all we have to do is install Ruby on Rails on it, and then we're done. So to do that, I like to follow this DigitalOcean guide for this exact Ubuntu version. So I'm just going to start by running this command, copy and pasting. I'll have the link to this website in the description. Sudo apt update. So we're first going to start up the Windows Ubuntu, and it's going to be purple on default, and we're going to say sudo apt update, password for mal. Enter the password, and then it's going to start working. So that's the first command. Next, we have to install the dependencies required to install Ruby. So this is a long line, and I recommend you copy and paste it instead of typing it all out. So go to the description where you'll find this website and then copy and paste the line. It asks for 226 megabytes of additional disk space. We're just going to say yes. We're going to allow that. Make sure you have enough disk space. After installing the dependencies, you can install RBNV itself. This is a Ruby version package manager, and it's really useful to install, so make sure to install it. So we're going to copy and paste this command to install the script from GitHub and pipe it directly into Bash using the installer. And now it's installing RBENV. And it says after reloading your terminal window, RBENV should be good to go. And the next thing that we have to do is add it to our path so that we can use RBENV command line utility. Then we have to add this line to our file so that it loads automatically. So go ahead and run that command. And then apply the changes you made to your file to the current session. So run that command. And then if you run type RBENV, you should get this. Now finally, we're going to install Ruby on Ubuntu. So we're going to hit clear, and then we're going to run our first command, and it's going to be RBENV install L. So we're going to type RBENV install -L. These are the versions that these are the current versions that are available to install. I'm going to install the newest version simply because it's the most up to date. So I'm going to run rbenv install 3.3.5. That should install that Ruby version. And so now that Ruby version has successfully been installed, all we have to do is run rbenv global 3.3.5, and that way we're going to actually set that Ruby version as the new default. So after you've done this, that means Ruby is successfully installed, and you can do commands like ruby-v and you should get a Ruby version. rbenv is useful because you can then install a new Ruby version and then just quickly change the version of Ruby you're using this rbenv global command, and then that's really handy if you want to quickly work on different projects. So now we're going to be working with gems. Gems are the way Ruby libraries are distributed. The first thing that we're going to do is run this command so that we don't install the documentation every time we install a gem, which is just a package. So run this command echo gem no document.gem or c. That's done. And then we're going to install the bundler. The bundler is a tool that manages gem dependencies for each project. So run the gem install bundler command. It shouldn't take that long. And now that we've done and installed the bundler, we can actually start to install Ruby on Rails. So I'm going to go clear, and then what we can do is we can install Rails. So I'm going to say gem install Rails, and I'm not going to specify the version because if I don't do that, it's going to install the newest version, which is exactly what I want. So just say gem install Rails, and this might take a while because Rails is a big gem. Even though it is actually a framework, it's installed as a gem. And now that is installed, we can now run rails-v. And as you can see, we have Rails 7.2.1.2. So now what I'm going to do is run clear. I'm going to run make dir, and we're going to call it Rails. And then I'm going to go cd into Rails. And then I'm going to run a new Rails command and see if it works. So Rails new, and we're going to call it project 1. So hit enter. And as you can see, our first project 1 is being created. And so that's the job successfully completed. Ruby on Rails has been successfully installed. One more thing to note, I'm running a Ruby on Rails mentorship program for people who want to learn Ruby on Rails really quickly. You can find more information about it on Patreon, and I really think it's an extremely useful tool for beginners and intermediates alike. Check it out in the description for more. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in future videos. Okay, so now that we have installed Ruby on Rails, the first thing that we're going to do is open up our Windows terminal, and we're going to create a directory. So I'm going to make a directory, make dir, and I'm going to say beginner. And then I'm going to cd into beginner, and then we're going to create our new app. So our first application is going to be a blog application. It's going to be an application where users are able to go in, create their blog, and view other people's blogs. Kind of like Twitter, but for blogging. So let's go and say Rails new, and let's say blog. That's going to create a new Rails application. It's going to take quite a while, but because we're running it on Linux, it's actually a lot faster than running Rails on Windows. So that's one of the benefits of running it on Linux. Once your application has been created, what we're going to do is cd into the application. CD stands for change directory. So cd into change directory, we called it blog, so we're going to cd into blog. Now that we're here, we're going to go and do code dot. Code dot opens it up in Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is called a code editor. So I'll go ahead and press enter on that command, and it will open it up in Visual Studio Code. This is our actual app. If you don't have Visual Studio Code, definitely get it. You can get it on the Microsoft Store, and so I definitely recommend it because I think it's the best. It's free, it's completely free, and so yeah, you should get it now if you haven't got it already. But if you want to use another one, that's perfectly fine, but this is what I use, so you should get it. Okay, so now that we've got our application open, because this is a beginner's course, this is probably quite daunting. So I'm going to go over everything and try to just make it a little bit less daunting. So we have a lot of folders and apps and files on the left here, and if you can't see them, it's because you need to press this button over here, the Explore button, or do Ctrl-Shift-E. And so I'm just going to go over some of the folders and files here. You might not have .github, don't even worry about that one. App, this is where we do most of our editing. The app folder contains the controllers, the models, and the views. This is where we're going to spend most of our time. And the controllers is where we have most of our logic. The models is where we have our models. So like Let's say with a post model, we define different things for that. And then the views, we can just imagine this as the HTML files that actually manage the CSS of the web page, the layout of the web page. Then bin, we're probably not going to go in here. These are the binary files that Rails just needs to work. And then config, we're going to go in here quite a bit. And roots, initializers, and environments are really the most important folder files, but they're all important. So roots, this is where we set the roots for our application. Roots kind of define how to connect the views, which is kind of like, if you haven't studied MVC before, I'll explain it now. But MVC stands for Model View Controller, and Rails is an MVC framework. Imagine MVC as models, views, and controllers. So it starts off with the view. When you're on a website, let's say the homepage of YouTube, we call it that you're on the homepage or you're on a view. When you press on a video, we imagine that as an action, you're doing something. And so what happens is that that action goes to the controller, and the controller itself then handles that logic and then decides what to do. Now the model is like the videos, the different videos. So you can store lots of models in the database. You can have different models, like a model can be a video, a user, a blog. If you don't get it, don't worry about it. You'll get it over time, okay? It is important. I was about to say it's not important, it is actually very important, but you'll get it over time. Anyway, so that's kind of an overview of the files and folders. I'll just go over a little bit some more. So DB, this is where we have our database. DB stands for database. Lib, we don't really go in there. Log, this is where our log files are for when we run the server. The log files go in here, or the log texts go in here. Public, these are our public files, not that important. These are the files that are available to the public. And like 404 error files, don't worry about that. And then storage, we don't need to worry about this. Test, if we're doing any testing, which we will get onto later in this course, maybe, hopefully, if we have enough time, then the tests will go in here. But this is really mainly important for production apps, and if you're working for a company, you need to know about testing. Then temp, these are our temporary files, not that important. Vendor too. And then one of the most important ones is the gem file. The gem file is kind of the file that handles all the packages in Rails. So imagine gems as packages, and the gem file just houses all of the packages. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're actually going to go ahead and build out our blog application. Now Rails is really cool because we're going to be able to do this extremely quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to say clear, and then in the terminal we're going to say Rails G scaffold. We're going to say blog, title, and body. Now what's going on here? Well, Rails G, this is just a generate command. G stands for generate. And scaffold, you might not have seen this term before, but a scaffold is essentially the collection of files that allows a CRUD process to take place in your application. So CRUD stands for create, read, update, and destroy. And in this case, we're going to be able to create, read, update, and destroy a blog. So blog, that's just the name of our model. Title and body, these are columns or attributes of the model. So don't worry if you don't understand everything right now, you will get it as we go on. So hit enter on this command and it's going to do plenty things. We actually get an error, I didn't expect this. Now funny, we actually get a little warning here and it's not allowing us to proceed. It says the name blog is already used in your application or reserved by Ruby on Rails. So what I'm going to do is just change the name of the model, because we got that error because our name of the application is actually blog. So I'm going to say Rails G scaffold and we're going to call it, we'll just call it post. So then hit enter on that command and as you can see it created a bunch of files. Now we're going to go over quickly what it created. So first of all, if we go to apps, views, we go to posts, we have this whole folder here and we have plenty of files in here. Don't be scared, it's just really, this is the cool part of Rails. Then if you go to controllers, we have a post controller. Then if we go to models, we have a new post model. So those are 3 new things. And then if you go to even like tests, it also created some tests. And now I want to introduce you to one of the most important parts of Rails, which is if we go to, well, I haven't actually got it yet. So first of all, run this command, Rails DB migrate. So Rails DB : migrate. The syntax in Rails takes a little bit of getting used to, but don't worry, you'll get it as we go along. Now, schema.rb. This is one of the most important files in Rails as it houses the representation of the database. As you can see, we have our posts table, and these are called attributes: title, body, created at, and updated at. So these are called attributes. We can also call them columns, because in some ways these are columns and this is a table. And so yeah, that's the schema.rb. Now we just ran Rails db migrate, which essentially made the migrations, you could call these migrations, migrate to the schema.rb. Because it was the first migration, we actually ended up creating this file, because before this there was nothing to put in it, but now we have something to put in it. So now that we've got all that, we're ready to start the Rails server. We could have started this before, probably should have, just to show you what it looks like. But now we've got our Rails server running. As you can see, it says booting Puma, Rails 7.2.1.2, application starting and development. What we can do is we can actually copy this link, or we can control click on it. And as you can see, it opens it up. And we also get started get for this page. And so that's the cool part about Rails. We have an interactive server, and we can open multiple servers at the same time if we want. That'll be useful later on. So now that we've got this, and we have our home page, this is the home page of Rails when you don't have anything happening, what we can do is we can go back to VS Code, and what we're going to do is we're going to link back to all of those post files that we created. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to uncomment this line of code, and it says root post hashtag index. So root post hashtag index essentially makes the root of your application. In other words, where it doesn't have any slashes, it just says the domain, and it just has a domain. So let's say like apple.com, that's the root of apple.com, or amazon.com, that's the root of Amazon. Well, in this case, this is the root of our application. It says the root of our application links to posts hashtag index. So what this does is it goes exactly to the file app controllers posts hashtag index. This is called a method. It's a part of the post controller file, and inside of here we have our post controller index. So basically what this does is it says at post is equal to post.all. So this is just displaying the post variable. Well, not displaying it, but just setting it to post.all. And what this also does is that it goes to the posts index and displays whatever is inside of here. Notice how we said posts index and also is posts index method. So these two are linked. Very important to understand this. Very extremely important. So we also have def show. Let's say the show method, right? This one and this one are linked. So let's say that I put a variable in here. It would be available here in this show page. So the show method variables are available in the show method or the show view. That's how they're linked. And if we save this roots file now, we're going to see something really, really, really cool that if you haven't seen before, is probably going to blow your mind, because you're going to have pretty much a working application from scratch just by, I don't know, like 10 minutes into this recording, 13 minutes. Right, so refresh the page, and as you can see, now we have this post, new post. We can add a new post. I'm going to say the first post ever. This is really cool, right? And so then we can say body, we can say whatever the hell I want. Scoop. Then create post. And as you can see, now we have a new post. It says post was successfully created. So that's scaffolding in Rails. This is called scaffolding, where we essentially make a model, create, read, updating, and destroyable. So that's the CRUD. CRUD is extremely important to remember. We can also edit this post, and we can also delete it if we want to, which is called destroy. It's the same thing, CRUD. And so that's the power of Rails. Just in 10 minutes, we were able to make this fully functioning thing. And you'll notice that if I like stop the server and then like turn off my computer or whatever you want to do, like even throw away the hard drive. No, I'm joking, don't throw away the hard drive. But if I stop the server and turn off my computer and then I start it again, this data will still be here. And that's because it is saved to the database. And that's extremely cool. So that's scaffolding in Rails. We now have our posts, and that's good. Now the next thing that I want to do, just to make this look a little bit nicer, I don't really like looking at a white screen all the time, is I'm going to introduce you to a new file in our application that you haven't seen before, and it's in app views layouts application.html.erb. Now Rails is not unique, but this is something that you might not have seen before. Application.html.erb is essentially where everything is rendered. So in this yield tag right here, we're rendering all of the other files. So let's say I wanted to create like a contact page or something like that. Then the contact page might go in like a pages folder in the contact.html.erb, and it'll be rendered inside of here. Now, if you don't get that, One other way to understand this is that if I add like a link here, like a style sheet link, then it will be available on every page in our application. And if you still don't get that, what we're going to do is we're going to go to simple CSS, and then we're going to add a link. And what this simple CSS does is it essentially boosts our application styling with just one line. So that's really, really useful. So I'm just looking for it now, if I can find it. So we're going to get the unminified version, just because it might be a little faster to load. And then we're going to go in here, and we're going to add it to the head of our application. So add it in there, and now we have a link to a style sheet, and it's going to simplecss.org. Voice crack, don't worry about that. So now that we have this style sheet, we're going to refresh the page, and as you can see, our styling has completely changed. That's brilliant, isn't it? Sorry for zooming in and out of the page, but as you can see, the styling is completely changed, and that's because of this simple CSS. So that's brilliant. Now we don't have to look at a terrible looking application. It's still not the best looking, but hey, for one line of code, I think it's pretty valuable for money, don't you think? Okay, so now that we've got posts in our application, what we're going to do is we're going to practice adding partials. So let's say we wanted to add a navbar to our application. If you don't know what a navbar is the top part of the page where you have like your home, about, new, or contact, that type of thing. The links to the page, and like it goes to the top of the page. It's kind of like a bar, a square rectangle here, and you have your home, about, logo, whatever. So we're going to add a navbar. And so the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go to our views, and we're going to create a new folder. So right click, new folder, and we're going to say pages. Inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file, and we're going to say underscore at the start, very important, and then navbar, navbar .html.erb. And then inside of here, we can just say h1, this is my navbar, and then that's it for now. Soon we might actually have our links to sign in, sign out, create a new blog, whatever you want, we can put it in here. And that's going to be really cool, but for now, we're just going to have this. Now if we save this file, nothing's going to happen, right? Because we haven't actually added it to the application.html.erb. And because this starts with an underscore, I didn't really explain well. This starts with an underscore, so it's called a partial. Any file that starts with an underscore in Ruby on Rails, we call this a partial. And what we can do to render this partial, render just means display it on the page. What we can do to put it on the page or display it on the page is we can go to layouts, application.html.erb, and then inside of here, what we can do is in the head, or yeah, we can say in the head, we can say render partial, and then we can say colon. I know the syntax in Ruby on Rails is weird, don't worry about it. And then we can say pages/navbar. And then we're actually not going to put this in the head. I don't think that's going to work. So we're going to put it there, just outside the head and outside the body. And then we're going to save this file, refresh the page. As you can see, now we have this is my navbar. Now the way that this works is we create a partial, right? This is we can display this anywhere we want. Then we went to application.html.erb. This page displays whatever we have in here on every single page, or more accurately, it displays the page with variables on this page. And we added render partial pages navbar. So it's pretty human syntax. It's like English. Render means like put on the page or display. Partial means the file that we can display anywhere. And pages navbar just gives us the direction or where to go to find the partial. So that's how we've done it. And we say this is my navbar. So for now, I'll just get rid of this is my navbar, and we'll just say dit navbar, right? And so now we understand how to have a navbar in our application. So that's great. We're making great time. We're only 20 minutes in and we're getting places. So we're going to have practice with all these things in this course so that you actually get a good understanding of what's going on. Now, the next thing that I want to introduce you to is what's actually going on when we have this scaffold, right? I probably should have covered it a bit early, but don't worry about it. So when we have this scaffold and all these pages, where do they come from? Well, we talked about it a little bit before, but they came from posts, form underscore post, edit, index, new, show.html. It came from all these files, right? This is what we're viewing here. So if I go to the back to the posts, we're in /posts, and that means we're in the index page here. If I go to show this post, that means we're displaying the show page here. If I go to destroy this post, we're not actually going to display we're going to go back to the index. We're not going to display the delete page because that's not a page. We don't need a page just for deleting, right? And if I go to the new page, we're going to go to the new page. So that means there are 4 different pages when you create every scaffold, right? That comes pre-installed with Rails. And let's say that I want to go here and I just want to say new post, title, the first image, whatever the hell I want. Don't even worry about what you put in there. It doesn't matter. And let's say that I want to change this. Let's say I don't need to display title here. It's pretty obvious that this is the title because it's the first thing there. And let's say I want to make this bigger as well. So what I can do then is I can find where this is coming from. Now you kind of just have to know, which is why I'm teaching you. But this right here, the post, this is coming from _post.html.erb, right? So extremely important. Now, as you can see, title and body, and then post.body and post.title. Post is obviously the variable here, and this comes from controllers, post controller. The variable is decided here, but that's too complicated for right now, right? So let's just get rid of title and see this change reflected on the page. As you can see, the title is gone. So now what we're just going to do is we're just going to make this bigger. So we'll say H1, and now it's going to be bigger. So H1, the first image, body, whatever the hell I want. And we're going to get rid of body as well. We don't need that. So that's just a little bit more practice with partials and how to edit things. That's really handy. I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to change this to a H2 because I realized that that is too big. So change it to a H2. Now the next thing that I want to experiment with is seeding posts. While this might be quite advanced, I feel like it's good to introduce this topic early. So the first thing that we're going to do is go to VS Code, and then I'm just going to alt click on app to close the folder, and that closes all the folders inside of it. Little tip there. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to go to db and then seeds.rb, and inside of here what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this in. So don't worry about it. But essentially what we're doing here is we are seeding the database. So seeding means just adding models or adding records to it. So we're saying post.create. So that means create a post that says title, first post, and content. This is the content of the first post. Now, very important, there's an error here, error with this seeding method. And that's because the content is not an attribute of our post table. So to do that, to change that, we're just going to change this to body. So I'm just going to change all of these to body. And the way I'm doing this, multi-select. So I'm just going to change this to body, and then I'm going to save this file. Now, what this is going to do is create 4 or 5 posts with different titles and different bodies. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go back to the terminal. We are going to open up a new command line, and then we're going to cd into where we are. So we are in, if I should remember, we are in cd blog, or no, we are in cd beginner, and then ls cd blog, right? And so inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to say rails db seed, and if we do that, we shouldn't get any response. But now that we've done that, if we go back to the page, we should see our posts. And as you can see, we have our posts. So that means the seeding was successful. Now, why is this useful? Why did we just do that? Well, in our current scenario, this can be useful because if we want to test our posts and what they look like on the page, then we don't have to be just creating them and just creating hundreds of them, right? We can just seed the database, and that's a much faster way of replicating it and then testing. And so this is extremely useful. So far, what we have covered just a little bit, not in depth, but we've covered partials, we've covered scaffolds, and we've covered a little bit of seeding. So your knowledge of Rails is going up very quickly. Now, the next thing that we're going to cover is user authentication. We want to make it so that only a user that is signed in can create a post. Now, the way that we're going to do this is by adding a gem. Remember, a gem is a package. So to add a gem, what we're going to do is we're going to go to rubygems.org. Now, what is this website? Well, rubygems.org is the website to find, install, and publish Ruby gems. Just says it there, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to search up a gem, which is the most popular gem for user authentication. It's called Devise with an S. So Devise with an S. And it's called a flexible authentication solution for Rails with Warden. As you can see, it has 210 million downloads, which is a lot, excuse me. So to add this gem to our application, what we have to do is add it to the gem file and then run a command to install it. Or we can just run this on its own. But the better way is to add it to the gem file so that we know later on what we have added as a package into our application. So copy this line, gem devise, or just say gem devise and it'll install the latest version. Go to the application, go to gem file, and we're just going to clean this file up a little bit because it's really important to have a clean place to work. Otherwise, I feel like the optimization and the work goes down. At least for me, it's important to be organized. So we're going to organize this file and just get rid of all the comments. We don't need them because we're professionals. No, I'm just joking. We're still beginners, but at this stage we are rapidly getting better at Ruby on Rails. You know, it's not like learning a language. It doesn't take 1,000 hours. It doesn't take that long, you know. While I wouldn't consider myself a pro, I feel very confident with the framework, and that's why I'm here teaching you, because there's a lack of tutorials on YouTube, and that's why I'm making this. So we're going to add this gem to the gem file, and first we're going to say custom gems. So add this to the gem file, custom gems, gem devise. Now earlier I said we had to run a command to actually install this gem, so we're going to go and we're going to say gem or bundle install. So bundle install. Now what the hell does bundle install mean? Well, bundler is a package that acts as the thing that kind of packages all of the gems, right? It's the thing that manages and stores all the gems. Well, not stores, but manages, we'll say. So bundle install means look at the gem file and install all the gems inside the gem file. Simply put, right? So if we hit install, we will see all the gems installed in gem file. And it's, as you can see, it says fetching gem metadata from rubygems.org. Rubygems.org was where we just were. So resolving dependencies and then installing all these gems. And most importantly, it says fetching Devise 4.9.4 and then installing Devise 4.9.4. So now Devise has been actually installed into our application. That doesn't mean that we have Devise or that we have user authentication or that anything is working. It's just a first step. But obviously, once you get well versed into these steps and you've done them hundreds of times, which I have done this step probably a million times. You know, I'm joking, but a lot of times you'll just do it automatically and it becomes very easy, right? It becomes like second nature. And so now that we've done this, as you notice, I've just automatically gone to the home page here, which is the GitHub page for Devise. GitHub is where they store the repositories for code, right? And on Devise, I went to the home page and then clicked my middle button, my mouse, to open up a new tab. And so you can just click on that and find it there. Then I scrolled down quite a bit because they have all this information here. Scroll down to where it actually starts, starting with Rails getting started. That's the most important part, getting started. And then we're going to start from here. So bundle add Devise, that's just another way of installing Devise. And then now that we've done that, we can run Rails generate Devise install. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's run this command, Rails generate Devise install. Now this is just an extra command that we have to run to actually install more Devise files. So let's go ahead and run it. And as you can see, it's given us 4 steps to do. I shouldn't say that, but it's given us 4 steps to do, right? So let's go ahead and read through these steps one by one. So first of all, it says depending on your application's configuration, some manual setup may be required. 1. Ensure you have defined default URL options in your environment's files. Here is an example of default URL options appropriate for a development environment in config environments development.rb. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, what it means is that we have to add this line to our config environments development.rb. It's not absolutely necessary, but they want us to do it just for the future if we want to add emails to our application. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, where is that file? Well, we can go back there and just have a look. It's in config environments development.rb. Config environments development.rb. And then we'll go in here, add this line, and that's it. That's the first step done. Hooray. So, required for all applications. Interesting. Then, step 2. Ensure you have defined root URL to something in your config routes.rb. For example, root to home hashtag index, not required for API only applications. Well, our application is clearly not an API only application, so we're going to have to do this. But if you go to root.rb, you'll see that we've actually already done this, because that was one of the first things that we did. We rooted to post hashtag index. So step 2 is complete too. Just to go over that again, it wanted root to home hashtag index, but we said root post hashtag index, which is also accepted. As long as you have root to something, it's accepted, right? And then step 3, ensure you have flash messages in app views layouts application.html.erb. For example, these flash messages, notice an alert, not required for API only applications. Again, we are not an API application, so we're going to have to do this step. So let's go ahead and copy these and put them in where they want us to put them. So they want it in app views layouts application.html.erb. So let's go ahead and do that. So app views layouts application.html.erb, and we are going to put it just below or just above the yield tag. So perfect, that's good. Just better the formatting there, make that even, and then that's that step completed. So go back to the terminal and go to step 4. It says you can copy Devise views for customization to your app by running Rails.g's Devise views, not required. So we're actually going to do this just because I think it's important for you to see the files of Devise. So let's go ahead and do that. Rails.g Devise views, and this is going to generate lots of Devise views. And remember that G stands for generate. So now, as you can see, if I go to views, the views folder in app, in views, it has a completely new folder with lots of folders inside it. Kind of seems scary, right? Well, don't be scared and just make sure to listen to me and you'll be fine. Inside of here, we have all of our views for Devise registration. It's simple as that. We only need to worry about this if we wanted to change them, which we might want to change them in the future, but don't worry about it for now. And so now that we've done that, we've done all the steps. Have we got user authentication? No, we haven't got user authentication yet, right? Our server is still running, so that's good. We're saving time there. So now that we've done that, we're just going to go back to our application and then work out what we want to actually do. Right, so we've got something in our application. It looks like a bar. Oh, it's actually the notice and alert. So that's okay, that's fine. Now, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make it so that in order to create a post, you have to be signed in. So to do that, what we're going to do is go to GitHub, and then we're going to go down here. And as you can see, it says Devise will create some helpers to use inside your controllers and views. To set up a controller with user authentication, just add this before action, assuming your Devise model is user. Now, here's one problem. We haven't actually got any Devise model, so we're going to have to generate one. It says the generate will install an initializer which describes all of Devise's configuration options. It is imperative that you take a look at it. When you are done, you are ready to add Devise to any of your models using the generator. So what we need to do is run this command and then generate a user model. So go in here and go to this, run this command, and don't just hit enter. Make sure to copy the command like I have it exactly, save you a lot of time, and we'll say Rails generate Devise user, because we want to call our model user because we want users in our application. We don't want camels. So just hit enter. And as you can see, now we have a user's model. So now that we've got that, what we have to do is we have to run Rails DB migrate, because that would have created a migration. Now, whenever you create a migration, you have to run Rails DB migrate for the server to actually display the pages, right? Because now if I go back to the page and I go here, we're getting an error. And now this is not actually the error that I was expecting, but it is an error nonetheless. So if we run Rails DB migrate, this error is going to go away, I hope. So Rails DB migrate, right? And as you can see, now that we've run that, the error is still there. Now we're getting a different error. It says no root get matches get posts. Let's just make sure that we still have root to posts in our config roots.rb. Whenever we have a routing error, we go to config roots.rb, check what's happening. What we're actually going to do is restart the server because we ran that Rails G model Devise, or Rails G generate Devise model. And as you can see, now everything is working. So restarting the server there got rid of all of our errors and also migrating the database. So restarting the server can be a useful thing to do. It worked, and now we were getting a Devise 4 errors, and that's because this here, Devise 4, that is a method that we don't know what it is, right? Who knows what Devise is for? The application doesn't know yet because it was still working with the previous knowledge. Because these initializer files, right, devise.rb, these only update when you restart the server. And so this is the one that sets the variable for that to be available. And so because this wasn't available to the previous server, we had to restart the server for this file to be available and actually there. So now it's working because we restarted the server and this file was available, or is available. So now that we got that working, let's go back to the Devise stuff. Let's go back to the Devise documentation, it's called. So it says controller filters and helpers, and this is really, really important. Devise will create some helpers to use inside your controllers and views. To set up a controller with user authentication, just add this before action, assuming your Devise model is user. So then, let's go ahead and do that. Let's say before action, authenticate user. Let's go to app, controllers, post controller, and copy and paste it in there. As you can see, we've already got one in there. Now, just before I carry on with this, I'm just going to try and explain what's going on here in this post controller because it's a little bit daunting and scary. So, index, we're saying app post is equal to post.all. You don't need to worry about this. Just remember that this is linked to the views. Every method here is linked to generally has its own view, right? Every method. But that's not necessary and not 100% of the time. It's like 50-50, right? And so in create, we're creating a new post. First, we're getting the post params, so we'll look at that in a second. But if the post is saved, we're going to redirect to the post. And if it's not being saved, then we're going to display the errors, right? And then update, if we're able to update it, then we're going to redirect to the post. And then destroy, if we're able to destroy it or delete it, we're redirected to the index. So that's just a little bit of the lowdown of what's going on in this file. Set post is where we're just finding the post via the ID. And then post params.require post title body. Okay. So this is just permitting the attributes that are in the schema.rb because we don't want to permit attributes that are not in the schema.rb, otherwise we'll be getting errors and that might break our application, right? So anyway, going back to VS Code, before action authenticate user, we're going to authenticate a user and we're going to say only, and then we're going to say %i. I know the syntax is weird, don't worry about it. And we're going to say new update destroy, and that'll do for now. So what this is going to do is this is going to make us sign in or create an account and sign in whenever we want to create a new post, update a post, or delete a post. So let's go ahead and see that. That's going to be cool, isn't it? So I want to create a new post, so I'm going to click new post, right? But it says log in. You need to sign in or sign up before continuing. Log in. Now this is extremely cool because we didn't have to create this view. We just added a few Devise commands. We just created a few commands and it's already done for us, right? It's extremely cool. It's a little bit magic, right? There's a lot of magic going on, but don't worry about that because this is the best way of developing, or I think it is at least, because if you get to know it, it becomes the most efficient. So it says you need to sign in or sign up before continuing. So what I'm going to do is sign up because I haven't got an account, right? So I'm going to say my email is just mal@gmail.com, which is just short for my name, Maliki, and then password of 123456, password of 123456, confirmation, sign up. Now we're signed in. So welcome, you have signed up successfully, and now it has redirected me to where I wanted to go initially, which is the new post page. So this is excellent. Now we've made it so that you can't create a post without signing up first. So that's really good. And we have our notices here as well, because if you remember in layouts application.html.rb, we added our notice and our alert. So how long are we doing now? So 43 minutes in. Okay, I'm going until 1 hour, and then we'll see what's going on. What I want to do is I want to create sign up, sign in, and sign out links on the navbar, because currently the navbar is the most useless thing there is, right? So we want to create some links and put it there. So I'm going to go to the home, layouts, or actually the pages navbar. I should have put the navbar in the layouts folder. I'm going to quickly change that. So we're going to put it in layouts, move, and then we're going to go to application, and we're going to say this is going to go to layouts See if that still works. Didn't break the whole application. Okay, still works. So that's good. Every partial should generally go in the layouts, unless it's not a good thing to do. It needs to be somewhere else, just because whatever's most clear, right? But navbar, that's not going to be like, it's not going to be to do with posts or anything like that, unless we have a post navbar. But that's something different. Navbar for the whole application goes in layouts, right? So we're going to create a link. The first link that we've ever created. You're going to be creating a lot of links in your time doing Ruby on Rails, and so we're just going to say %, or lesson sign, %, equal sign, and then link to quotes, and we're going to say home, and then comma root _ path. This right here is extremely important. This is the syntax for a link in Ruby on Rails. As you can see, now every Ruby on Rails embedded Ruby, it's called embedded Ruby, starts with this %, this like blue stuff right here. That's how Ruby works. It works like this, right? I'll just make it even clearer. That's Ruby, right? That's Ruby right there. Now the equal sign is when you want to display something on the page. Because this is a link, we want to display it on the page, right? But if we had like an if statement, well, we don't want to display an if statement on the page. That's not even going to work. So we get rid of the equal sign there. But anyway, that's just a side note. So going back to the link, let's see what happens with this, right? Let's see what happens with this. As you can see now, we have a link to the home, and if we do that, we go to the home of the application, which is actually already this page. But if I go here, like I'm on the post, and then I go home, now we're at home. So that's good. We created our first Ruby on Rails link. You probably know how links work, having used the internet for years and years. Anyway, we're gonna create this, and we're gonna put it in a we'll just put it in a H4 or something. That should be good. Styling is not what we're doing in this course, because that's not what the people want. Because styling it's already covered. There are plenty of tutorials on styling. Ruby on Rails is what we want to cover, and up-to-date tutorials. So anyway, now we've got a home link. What we're going to do is we're going to create a sign up link. So to create a sign up link, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to say, first of all, we're just going to copy this by doing Shift Alt and down arrow. So Shift Alt down arrow copies it, right? And then Control Z to undo. And then we're going to say sign up. And because I'm already signed in right now, I'm signed in, so we don't want to sign up while I'm signed in. So maybe what we'll say is, we'll say sign out, right? And to make a sign out link work, we're going to have to change this right here, this root path. Root path is the path at the root of the application. We already know that. You should know that every link ends with an _ path. So it's not just root, it's root _ path. So we're going to the root _ path. Very important, extremely important. So link to sign out root path. So you say in link syntax, you say the link to, and then you have the quotes, and then you have the path. And you can also add like a class, like a CSS class if you want to apply CSS to it, but that's for later, that's not for now. Right, so root path. We don't want to actually do root path, so we're going to say destroy user session _ path. Now there's something special about the Devise link, and that's because when signing out, it's generally recommended not to use a link, and we're going to instead use a button. And because we're saying destroy user session path, we're also going to say method delete, right? Because we want to have a delete method. I'll cover the different types of web requests in another video, or maybe I'll do it now, who knows. Anyway, let's try this. So we're signed in now, and we want to log out. So let's say refresh the page. We have a sign out button and sign out, and then as you can see, we're signed out successfully because of this button. So that's our first link in Devise, right? Now we want it to appear side by side, the home button. And so I've just made these items appear side by side by using display flex line item center. And so now that we got the sign out link, right, we're able to sign out successfully. But we can't just it just keeps saying signed out successfully. But that's not what we want, right? We only want to show the sign out link if we are currently signed in. And so to do that, what we're going to say is we're going to say if current _ user. Now this is an if statement, and it's basically checking if the user is currently signed in. So if current user, and then when in Ruby, we also have to say end, and then we're only going to show this button if the user signed in. And so now we're not signed in, so we can't sign out, right? That makes sense. That just makes sense. And then now we want to show the sign up or sign in links when we are signed out or when we're not logged in. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to say else. So say else, and this is another part of Ruby, and we're going to say link to. Again, we're using link to here because it's not a delete route. This is just special here. You just have to kind of know this one. Button 2 sign out destroy user session path method delete. Just memorize that. Remember that is special. And then we're going to say sign up, and these are easier because you just have to say like new underscore user underscore registration underscore path, and then that'll give us the sign up link. Now we have sign up links, so that's cool. And then we're also going to copy that, paste that, and we're going to say new user, and it's not registration path, it's going to be session path, and also change this to sign in. So now we have our sign up and sign in links respectively. And so now we have our 2 links, and that's good. So we can log in and sign in. I'll just change this to login because that makes more sense, right? So when we log in, I'll just log in with the email I created earlier. As you can see, now we're showing the sign out link, and that is conditional logic in Ruby. So now that we've done that, I think I'm going to end this video here and go and edit it, and then I'll get back to you on the next thing to do.